Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving deep into a really fascinating intersection of astrology and psychology. We are going to be looking at a very specific astrological placement, Mercury in the second house. Now, as you'll see, this placement reveals an incredible, almost hidden relationship between a person's intelligence, the way they speak, and their deepest personal values. It's like a giant puzzle, and we're going to break down exactly what it means when your mind and your voice are just so intricately linked.
But first, think about this for a second. Are you using your intelligence to build understanding, or has cleverness become a subtle way of protecting hidden pain? That right there is the core paradox we're exploring today. You see, while this placement means words just flow effortlessly for these folks, it also carries a pretty significant psychological challenge. It really forces us to pause and ask what's actually driving our conversations. So let's unpack exactly what that means.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the gift of words.
Listen, for folks with Mercury in the second house, communication is basically their absolute superpower. We are talking about this incredibly effortless flow of words and ideas. Honestly, they are the ultimate conversationalists. They make any discussion lively and engaging just because they possess this lightning-fast mental processing. Their observations, sharp and instant. It allows them to spot patterns that the rest of us completely overlook. Plus, they have this amazing knack for taking highly complex, dense ideas and explaining them simply. Throw in their constant curiosity and fresh ideas, and you've got someone everyone just naturally gravitates toward and loves listening to.
Which brings us to Section 2, intelligence as emotional armor.
Let's look under the hood here, because communication psychology tells us that language does way more than just pass along information. It actually reveals our emotional states. And that brings us to a huge concept, defensive humor. What is it? Well, it's using jokes, sarcasm, irony, or just quick wit to manage uncomfortable feelings or mask vulnerability, rather than simply expressing disappointment directly. Because Mercury processes emotions through these brilliant, punchy remarks instead of silence, the underlying hurt often goes completely unnoticed by everyone else. Instead of actually admitting, hey, I'm hurt, they fire off a perfectly timed joke.
So how does this cycle actually develop? Let's walk through the steps, because it's fascinating. Step 1. The person feels vulnerable or insecure. Step 2. Instead of showing that vulnerability, boom, they deflect with a quick, witty response. Step 3. They earn a social reward. Maybe they get a massive laugh from the room, or they instantly win an argument. And finally, Step 4. Over time, cleverness subconsciously starts to replace kindness. Psychology shows us that repeated social rewards reinforce our habits, so winning the moment quietly becomes way more important than truly understanding the person standing in front of you.
Now, where does this all start? Let's look at Section 3, Childhood Roots and Self-Worth.
Seriously, where does this pattern actually come from? Well, the second house is deeply tied to our early conditioning. Think back to early family environments. Oftentimes, intellect gets all the praise. Being knowledgeable feels safe and reassuring, which links their intelligence directly to their identity and self-worth. But on the flip side, emotional openness is pretty much ignored. Since emotional vulnerability gets crickets, it just gets replaced by being the funny kid to reduce tension. Mercury remembers these early lessons, and as adults, we often just repeat them on autopilot.
Moving right along to Section 4, Relationships and Emotional Safety.
This childhood conditioning? It creates some serious friction in adult relationships. Because relationships demand way more than just being smart. They absolutely require emotional safety. Let's weigh this core conflict. On one side, you have winning the argument. Impressing the mind, proving your point, using that playful sarcasm. But on the other side, you've got preserving the connection, protecting the heart, creating emotional safety, and leaving the other person feeling respected. During a fight, a clever sentence might absolutely win you the debate. But here's the catch. Sarcasm that feels super playful to the speaker can feel deeply personally hurtful to the listener.
And here is the absolute bottom line. Communication succeeds because it leaves people feeling truly respected. That's it. Friends, colleagues, partners, sure, they appreciate your intelligence, but relationships have to be built on a foundation of respect. Proving a point just cannot come at the expense of your emotional connection.
But it's not all heavy. Let's talk about Section 5, Professional Strengths and Success.
Let's see how this plays out in the professional world, because let me tell you, this exact same intellectual agility translates into massive career advantages. When we look at ideal career paths for this placement, the list is just huge. Writing, journalism, law, business, marketing, sales, education, finance, content creation. The options are endless. Why? Because individuals with Mercury in the second house can explain ideas clearly and adapt on the fly.
Their verbal skills and quick thinking make them absolute powerhouses in any field that relies on rapid-fire, effective communication.
And that leads us to our final takeaway in Section 6, from cleverness to compassion.
Let's tie this all together with the ultimate lesson of this placement, and it's a big one. The sharpest observation is not always the most helpful. Modern communication psychology emphasizes that really great communicators know the difference between humor that creates connection and humor that creates distance. Every single conversation contains both facts and feelings. And you know what? Sometimes the kindest sentence is infinitely more influential than the cleverest one.
So the crucial point here is making that leap from mere knowledge to true wisdom. Knowledge is using your sharp words to win arguments and assert superiority. Wisdom, on the other hand, is protecting relationships, using kind sentences, and actually sharing compassion. Astrology isn't asking anyone to be less intelligent. No way. It's celebrating those extraordinary intellectual gifts, but simply asking you to allow empathy to steer that brilliant mind of yours.
It really all boils down to this classic truth. People may forget the exact argument, but they rarely forget how someone made them feel. Words shape both memory and emotion. A brilliant, cutting remark might fade away in a few hours, but a genuinely kind sentence, that can stay in someone's heart for years.
So I'm going to leave you with this final, really powerful question to chew on. Will your intelligence serve to win the moment, or will you use it to enlighten, encourage, and quietly heal? When intelligence serves understanding instead of just superiority, your communication becomes truly transformative. That is when Mercury hits its absolute highest potential. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll catch you next time.